question sent to me the other day, and that was, how do you know the difference between a stress fracture and shin splints? And it is an interesting question because generally the pain of both of them can present in the same way, and they can both come on due to the same types of reasons, and that's due to overuse, extra force, or chronic overuse or extra stress being placed on the lower limb over a prolonged period of time. So I'm going to go through some of the differences between the two, and if this is the case for you, then hopefully this video will help answer some of your questions. So I'm going to use my lower limb here to help explain it to you. And actually, can I just say, my man here, I've had him for 14 years, and his leg has only just dropped off. It's literally in the last 2 or 3 days, his leg's dropped off, and I'm so sad. But anyway, this question comes at the right time, so I can explain to you in more detail. So let's just cut to the chase. When it comes to the difference between the two, first of all, like I explained in my video before, when it comes to shin splints, the pain of shin splints comes on due to inflammation of tissue being pulled against the bone here. Yeah, so when you have medial tibial stress syndrome, the muscle pulls against the bone, and that's what causes inflammation and pain down the lower leg. If you have a stress fracture, obviously it's a completely different entity, and that's when you have a break or a crack in the cortices of the bone here. Yeah, so complete differences between the two. Now, when it comes to pain of them both, yes, they both present as pain in the lower leg here. And when you tend to have shin splints, you do tend to have pain the whole way down, but it tends to be worse in the lower third of the lower leg. So when it comes to running or any sports you're doing, if you have a shin splint, if you start exercising or training or moving the leg, or even especially if you're stretching it or trying to rub the muscle, the pain you're getting can tend to ease off very slightly or change. So it can have a change in pain and can ease off slightly before it gets worse again. So with a shin splint, that will change. With a stress fracture, on general, the pain will not change. It will be more localized and it won't change. So when it comes to looking at someone who presents with lower leg pain, I will always do an examination on them. And what we'll always do is we'll look at the foot movement, we'll look at the biomechanics of the talus, the lower leg here, feel down the bone here. We'll also look at mechanics of the hip, the knee, the lower back here, and the parts of the spine. And all of these can have an effect and change the way that stress is being placed upon the lower limb. Now, when it comes to looking at the pain, with a shin splint, yes, you'll generally have pain the whole way down. You can have it with stress fracture as well, but you'll have pain the whole way down, but it'll get worse lower down. With a stress fracture, it tends to be more localized pain right in the area of pain. And a way to detect the differences between a shin splint or a stress fracture is by using a tuning fork. So what we tend to do is get a tuning fork and we'll place it on the area of where we suspect stress fracture to be. If someone has a stress fracture in the lower leg, or even if you have a stress fracture of your foot, let's go diversing here, if you have a stress fracture in one of the metatarsals, if you place a tuning fork on it, a patient will not like it. They will jump off the bed or they'll try and kick you in the face, yeah? So this is a good way of determining the differences between the two. If we do suspect that someone has a stress fracture, sometimes I will then go on to take an x-ray. And if you take an x-ray, you can see cortical density changes within the bone. You see a white density. So that's generally the difference between the two. So if you're having pain of shin splints, it tends to be more widespread and it can tend to change. If you have pain of a stress fracture, it tends to be more localized and it'll be really jump out of your skin if you use a vibrating fork. There were also talks of whether prolonged shin splints can go on to cause stress fractures. And there are possibilities that could do. So if you're having excess use, doing overworking the lower limb and the muscles are really working, yes, it can start placing more strain down through here, but then you can start having some change in cortical densities potentially and start to have some microtraumas being placed through here. So generally, the general advice is if you're getting pain and it's prolonged and it's not going away, get it fixed, get it looked at. Don't leave it for a long period of time before it starts causing more damage and more problems. So I hope that answers some of your questions. And if you are getting pain and discomfort, seek some advice and get it looked at as soon as you can.